answer, you know. One of the things about it, older people at that time.
Excuse me, let me I just see something that's bothering me. Just a little bit of tell me about what your grandfather used to talk to you about. Okay.
Well, my grandfather would talk to me about the older people around him and talk about the Confederate soldiers and the play that he did with other kids and that kind of thing. It wasn't too much that they could do as children at that time because they were like living in camps, you know. And one of the things that he was excited about, more or less, was how they would try to hide cotton to keep the Union soldiers from getting the cotton. That was interesting because it was like, it was almost like radio shows or something of that sort. After I was exposed to radio, that's what I compared it with. And it was really exciting for him to tell about things like that. But more or less, when my grandfather would be talking about things, he'd be talking to his friends who would come to the blacksmith shop, be at the Saga Molasses Mill, you know.
Can you kind of look closer to me, Richard?
Yeah, you see where
Okay, just wait a second. Just come to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. Did he talk about how he got the land, how his land, and did he tell you anything about what it was like to farm in his day?
Well, I didn't know too much about his being able to farm because his sons were there and they more or less controlled the farming of the land. So he had two grown sons that lived there at that time, and one managed the part of the land that was being rented out, that was being farmed by the sharecroppers. My father had a portion of land that he worked for his family, you know. And my uncle took care of the other part of that. My grandfather just worked a blacksmith shop, his orchard, and his saga molasses mill.
Who came to the blacksmith for?
All the farmers in the area around the Monroe vicinity. They would come and bring their tools and just leave them there, and he would work on them and get them ready and just lay them aside. And everybody, when they get, you know, at the end of the week or whatever time it was convenient for them to come pick them up, they would come. Now on rainy days, that's when his shop was full of visitors. They would come and talk about all of the things that was happening in their families and in the communities, where they exchanged the different information as to what was going on, who had babies, whose cows had calved, how many mules was dying, how many was sick. One of the things about it, didn't hear too much about people being ill at that time.
Now, did black and white farmers use your grandfather's shop?
Oh yes. And of course our community was mostly black. There were, as I can recall now, there's about 5 white families that were landowners in that area. And they had just a small group of children. The black farmers were the ones that had the largest families. And they worked the largest tracts of land at that time. If they didn't own the land, they worked for the people that did own it.
How were the relations between the white families that were there and your family and grandfather?
Oh, it was very good as far as I could understand, because we had everybody, you know, we knew how to distinguish who and how to get along at that time. You know, it was one of the things, survive. You learn how to survive, you know, regardless of whatever the relationship might be or what existed. And we heard of things happening in other communities, but I never heard of any incidents between the white and black in our community.
Did you ever hear of Elaine and what happened to Elaine?
I heard about that, but but it was a thing that was kept on a QT out in that area because they didn't want it to spread, you know.
Well, yeah, elaborate a little bit.
Well, say for instance, one of the things that I can remember is that they came around and took up all the guns from the people who owned guns, especially the black. Because I can remember my uncle having a gun and he took it to hid it in the loft of my grandfather's house. He said he wasn't going to ever give up all of his guns. Yes.
This was when? When did they come to take the gun?
This must have been like 29, I think. That's when the riot was, I think, in 29.
A little earlier.
Whatever it was. But anyway, the effects of it lasted much longer than the actual riot, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to find out. How did the effects, how do you remember the effects of it?
Well, all I could remember is just what I heard people talking at that time. I wasn't big enough to become involved in it in any way, not even in the conversation that went on, just with big little ears. So little pictures have big ears, and I just had big ears. And
you remember some of the kinds of things they said?
well, they were just talking about how terrible it was, what had happened, and how it had happened, and the details was so many people tell so many different stories until you didn't know really what was true, you know. And I think it's true. It's almost that way today. You talk to 10 different people that try to tell you about it, and you would get probably 10 different versions.
Did they try and keep it from your parents, try and keep you from hearing about it? Did they want to protect you from?
No, not necessarily, because see, discipline in those days was of such. Children just did not get involved in the adult conversations or the things that they were participating in or involved in. If there were things that they didn't want children to hear, they just didn't talk to it around the children. If the children were there, they would send them someplace else. That's the way they handled that.
Did they explain to you at all about the white world and about how the differences were in terms of what whites could do and why they went to different schools and you went, things of that nature? In other words, did they talk to you about Jim Crow?
Oh yes, they would talk about it, but I suppose it was different with my people because we were landowners, you know, and more or less independent in a sense. The only dealings that we had to do was when the farmers would go to get money to raise their crops and this kind of thing, you know. It's the only time that you would really hear about any involvement as far as business was concerned, you know. And boys didn't learn too much about that until they reached about 18 or 20 years old, you know. Usually the older men took care of that. And if there were women who didn't have husbands and they had sons, well, then the sons got involved a little earlier. But we understood the line of discrimination. We didn't go to the same schools, and if there was, well, we'd go to town, you know, and usually on Saturday, and black people stayed together and the white people stayed together, and there was hardly ever any fricas or anything that happened between them. And if you did, it would be because maybe somebody would have been drinking a little too much or something of that sort, you know.